In the heart of modern Asia, beneath the glass towers and glowing neon, lie ancient shadows that never left. You won't find them in tourist brochures or on city maps, but they're there. In the soft static of a late-night phone call, in the elevator that stops on a floor that doesn't exist, in the voicemail that plays even when your phone is off. These are not just stories, they are warnings. Tales passed through whispers, carried by wind, buried under concrete, waiting to be heard again. Tonight, we answer one of them. This is Ghosts of Asia, and this story is called Voicemail 808. The van pulled up just after dusk. The city was still humming, but the building before her stood unnaturally still. Suryan Tower. Steel, glass, clean angles. A high-rise among high-rises, but somehow colder than the rest. The name itself meant Spirit Bell, though Ji-yoon only found that out later. On her lease agreement, it simply read Suryan Tower, Unit 807. She stepped out, hands in her coat pockets, staring up through the foggy twilight. The building reflected the sky, blank, expressionless, as if erasing anything human that looked too long. It was quiet, too quiet for a residential tower. No sounds of kids, no dogs barking, no television bleeding through walls, just the soft click of motion-activated lights following her up the driveway. Ji-yoon had moved dozens of times in her adult life. University dorms, sublets, share houses, then solo studios. This one was meant to be different, permanent, grown up, a new start after the burnout, the breakup, and the blur of pandemic years. Her friend said the unit was a steal. Clean, modern, central, the kind of place someone her age usually couldn't afford unless something was wrong. But Ji-yoon had learned not to ask too many questions, especially when she was running out of options. The lobby was pristine but soulless. Polished stone floors, a fake plant in the corner, security camera blinking like a sleepy eye. The front desk was unstaffed, but a touchscreen panel displayed her move-in code. She entered it. A green light blinked. Welcome, 807. The elevator arrived before she pressed the button. She stepped inside, dragging her suitcase behind her. As the doors closed, she noticed the panel. Floor buttons were arranged in a standard vertical row, 1 through 25, but where 8 should be, there was nothing. Her brow furrowed. She looked again. 7, 9, 10. No 8. It wasn't uncommon. Some buildings omitted the number 4 or 8 due to superstitions, but that should have been mentioned in the listing, right? Her lease clearly said Unit 807, so why was the 8th floor missing? She pressed 7. The elevator shuddered once, too long, too heavy, and began its ascent. There was a scent in the elevator, not unpleasant, not strong, just old, warm plastic, something faintly sweet, and underneath it, smoke. The faintest hint of smoke. When the doors opened, the lights flickered awake. Dim yellow glow. Long hallway. Smooth walls. Soundproof doors in identical rows. She walked past them, counting carefully until she reached hers. 807. The numbers were stamped in chrome on a black background. Her new home. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The apartment was quiet. Modern layout, bare. Pale wood floors, white walls, tall windows facing the neighboring tower. It looked exactly like the photos, spotless, generic, ready to be lived in. She dropped her suitcase and walked slowly through the space, letting her footsteps echo off the walls. She turned on the lights, then the gas. Everything worked. The only strange thing was how cold it felt. Not in temperature, but in spirit. A kind of sterility that went deeper than new paint. Something about it felt like no one had ever truly lived here, like it had been waiting. She didn't unpack, just brushed her teeth, changed into sweats, and curled up on the mattress she had thrown on the floor. It was temporary. The bed frame would come next week. She closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling at her from the inside out. She had almost fallen asleep when her phone vibrated. Eyes still closed, she reached for it. Unknown number. One voicemail. She blinked in the dark. Strange. No ringtone, no missed call alert, just the voicemail. She sat up. The room was quiet. The window was closed. The hallway beyond the door was dark. She tapped the message. Length 0033. Timestamp 8:08. She hadn't noticed the time. She brought the phone to her ear. At first, only static. Then, a faint sound. A woman's voice. Breathy. Muffled. Choked. She wasn't speaking clearly, more like whispering into her palm. Words ran together, syllables dragged. She couldn't make them out. Then came the sound of sobbing. A breath caught. A wet gasp. A distant alarm. And then, nothing. Silence. The message ended. She stared at the screen. The number field was blank. No option to call back. She checked her voicemail log. The message was there, but there was no option to delete it. Just a gray icon where the trash bin should be. Her skin prickled. She checked her call log. No record of any call at all. She held her phone tightly, eyes darting toward the door. The building was supposed to have good sound insulation, but maybe she'd picked up a neighbor's message, a crossed signal, a tech glitch. That had to be it. Ji-yoon set the phone down, tried to shake it off, tried to sleep. But the room now felt heavier, like someone was listening, like the silence was waiting to be broken again. The next morning, she looked up the building's number online to ask about the missing 8th floor. The property management page had no mention of superstitions, but the photos showed a floor labeled 8, clear as day, in the original blueprints. She scrolled further down. A comment on a rental review site caught her eye. Lived there in 2022. Weird layout. Avoid floor 8. Especially Unit 808. She blinked. She hadn't seen a door labeled 808 on her floor. Later that day, as she waited for the elevator, she noticed something. The door just past hers, that one with no number, looked older than the others, its metal edges slightly warped, its peephole covered in black tape. She stood there staring, and from somewhere beyond that door came the faint sound of a phone vibrating. Soft, dull, repeating. She leaned in just slightly, and then it stopped. That night, her phone vibrated again. 8:08 p.m. Unknown number. One voicemail. The same voice, a little louder this time, a little more desperate. And in the background, faint but real, she heard the crackling sound of fire and someone whispering, You didn't answer. The second voicemail came exactly 1 minute after sunset, 8:08 p.m. Ji-yoon was in the kitchen, rinsing a chipped coffee mug when her phone vibrated on the counter. She didn't rush to check it, not at first. She assumed it was a reminder, or maybe a text from her mother asking if she'd eaten. But when she wiped her hands and picked it up, the screen lit up with a familiar phrase. Unknown number, 1 voicemail, 0033 seconds. Timestamp, 8:08 p.m. Her blood chilled. She stared at the screen. No missed call, no ringtone, no call history entry, just the message again. Her finger hovered over it. For a long moment, she didn't want to listen, but she tapped play. Static, softer this time, then breathing, fast, ragged, labored. A woman's voice again, a little clearer. Ji-yoon strained to make out the words. Can't get out. The voice was hoarse, broken by coughs. Someone, please. The sound of distant crackling, soft at first, then building, like fire, like something dry being eaten by flame. The voice sobbed, and then whispered something unintelligible. A name, maybe? Then silence. Exactly 33 seconds. The message ended. Ji-yoon stood frozen in the dim kitchen light. Outside her window, the city glowed as if nothing was wrong. But inside her chest, something stirred, something primal and cold. She checked the voicemail log again. Still no number, still no way to delete it, still grayed out options. She tapped details. No data, just a blank screen. She closed the app, reopened it. Nothing changed. With trembling hands, she Googled ghost voicemails Korea. Hundreds of results, most ridiculous, some chilling. But one caught her eye, a thread on an old paranormal forum. Can a spirit leave a message if they died during a traumatic event, especially fire? The responses were mixed, skeptics, believers, trolls. But one user had replied, if someone dies during a traumatic event, especially fire, and their last act was trying to call, that energy can imprint itself. It can replay. It's not always a ghost. Sometimes it's a memory. But if the messages change, it's not just a memory anymore. Ji-yoon closed the tab. She didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, lights on, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Every sound in the building felt amplified. Pipes groaning, someone walking above, a soft mechanical hum through the wall. At one point, around 2 a.m., she heard what she thought was a girl crying. She got up, pressed her ear to the wall. Nothing. But when she returned to bed, the air smelled faintly of burnt plastic. The next morning, she wandered the hallway pretending to check the mail. She paused outside the door just past hers, the unmarked one. It had no unit number, just a black metal door, slightly dented at the bottom. The peephole still covered with tape. She pressed her hand to it. Cold. Then she noticed the door across the hall, 809. So if hers was 807 and that was 809, then this door had to be... She stepped back. 808. The one that didn't appear on the elevator panel, the one the blueprint had tried to erase. That night, Ji-yoon set an alarm for 8:07 p.m. When it rang, she sat on the couch, phone in hand, breath held. She watched the screen as the minute ticked over. 8:08 p.m. Buzz. Unknown number. 1 voicemail. This time, her finger trembled as she hit play. They're all gone. The voice shook, crying, coughing. I can't Breathe. Then, a crashing sound, metal against tile. Mom, please. Ji-yoon's stomach turned. The girl wasn't just whispering anymore, she was breaking. The final words were almost inaudible. Someone there. The message ended, and Ji-yoon realized it had changed. Again. Not a loop, not a memory, a conversation, growing, reaching. That night, Ji-yoon dreamed of fire. She was trapped in a stairwell, choking on smoke, her phone burning in her hand. No one came, no one answered. She woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. She grabbed her phone, 3:33 a.m. The voicemail app was open, and the most recent message was already played. She didn't remember pressing play. The following day, she asked the building manager, a young man in a pressed suit, if anyone lived in Unit 808. He hesitated, smiled politely. There is no 808, ma'am. But it's between 807 and 809. He shrugged. That's a utility room. It's not on the lease plan. Then why does it have a door? I'm not sure. I just handle maintenance. She didn't believe him. Later that week, Ji-yoon bumped into a woman on the 9th floor, an elderly tenant in a hanbok cardigan, carrying a small tray of salt and rice. Ji-yoon helped her carry it, asked if she'd lived here long. The woman nodded. Since before it burned. Ji-yoon froze. Burned? The woman looked down the hallway, then back at her. They built this tower on the bones of the old dormitory. It caught fire 3 winters ago. No alarms. Students were trapped inside. They say a girl kept calling from room 808, but no one believed she was still alive. Ji-yoon's breath caught. What happened to her? They found her. Phone melted to her face. The woman leaned in, voice low. Some nights, she still calls. If she chooses you, don't answer. Once you answer, you can't unhear her. Ji-yoon stared at her. The woman placed a pinch of salt on her palm. Keep this by your bed. It won't stop her, but she'll know you were warned. That night, Ji-yoon turned off her phone. She unplugged it, powered it down, put it in a drawer. She tried to sleep. At 8:08 p.m., her desk lamp flickered once. Her kitchen faucet dripped, once, twice, 3 times. From behind the wall, she heard it, a faint vibration, a hum, a soft click like a voicemail playing itself, and the whisper that followed. You're listening now, aren't you? The next morning, Ji-yoon stood outside the door again. No number, no nameplate, no welcome mat. Just a door that shouldn't be there. Unit 808. She reached out and touched the doorknob. Cold, too cold for morning. The hallway was warm from sunlight filtering in through the lobby windows, but this door felt like it belonged to something deeper underground. She leaned her head close. Nothing. No sound, no movement. But in the silence, she imagined it, someone on the other side, breathing just as softly, listening. She pulled away, heart racing, and hurried back to her unit. She locked her door and stood against it, trying to control her breathing. It was just a room, just a door. But the dread clung to her skin like ash. Later at her desk, Ji-yoon searched online for anything about Suryung Tower's history. She found property listings, promotional videos, glossy images of couples smiling in kitchens filled with morning light. Nothing about fires, nothing about deaths, Nothing about the girl with the melted phone. But one post buried on a local message board caught her attention. A thread titled, "Why is Suryong Tower's 8th floor wrong?" She clicked. Most of the replies were jokes, but one user's comment chilled her. Lived there in 2022, Unit 807. Girl in 808 died in a fire when it was still a student dorm. They sealed the unit. No one talks about it. If you hear your phone ring at 8:08, don't pick up. If you do, the messages get louder, closer, until they're not in your phone anymore. They're in your walls. Ji-yoon's screen dimmed from inactivity. She stared at the reflection of her own face, pale, eyes wide. That evening, as the clock neared 8, she stood in the hallway. This time, she brought her phone with her. She stood directly in front of 808. 7:59, she waited. At exactly 8:08 p.m., her phone buzzed in her hand. She didn't move, didn't look. She knew what it said. Unknown number, one voicemail. Her gaze remained fixed on the door. And then she heard it. From the other side, a faint, dull buzzing. Not loud, just enough to feel like something vibrating against the floor. A phone, ringing at the same time as hers. The two calls aligned perfectly. She stepped back. Her hands trembled. The message waited on her phone, unplayed. She didn't press it. Not yet. She went back inside and poured herself a glass of water, trying to steady her nerves. The glass fogged in her hand, though the water wasn't hot. She placed it on the kitchen counter and sat, staring at her phone. Eventually, curiosity won. She tapped the voicemail. Crackling. A longer silence this time. The sound of something shifting, metal clinking, a faint scream far in the background like it came through several walls. Then the voice returned, breathless, shaking. "I'm in 808. Please, help me." The message ended. This was the first time the unit had been mentioned, out loud. Her unit. Ji-yoon checked the time. 8:42 p.m. She hadn't moved since the message ended. She hadn't blinked. Later that night, she walked down to the lobby, past the empty front desk, and into the elevator. She pressed the emergency button, not to call for help, but to test it. The panel lit up red. Nothing happened. She tried speaking into it. No response. Then she pressed the 7 button again, even though she was already on that floor. The elevator hesitated, then rose. The panel flickered once. She caught a glimpse, just a flash, of something impossible. The number 8 lit up, then disappeared. The doors opened onto the same hallway she'd just left, except it felt wrong, quieter, dimmer. She stepped out. All the doors were numbered the same, except for one. Now, for the first time, there was a faint red mark on the door, a handprint. She didn't remember seeing that before. She reached for it. Her fingers hovered just above the shape. The moment her hand got close, she felt heat. Not on the door, but rising from within herself, like standing too close to a bonfire, like heat pressing in from inside her chest. She pulled away. Back in her apartment, she poured salt in the corners of her bedroom, just like the old woman had told her. It was an old superstition. Salt could ward off spirits, or at least let them know you were aware of them. She left her phone on the coffee table, screen down. She didn't want to hear the next message. She didn't want to know what came next. But the next day, it played anyway. She found it already open, already played, still lingering in the notification bar. This time, the voice was no longer asking. It was whispering names, familiar names, her name. She could barely understand it through the static and the sobs, but the cadence was unmistakable. She was being called. Ji-eun, please. Something about the way it said her name, like a friend, like a child, like someone who remembered her even if she didn't remember them. She shut the app, deleted it, restarted her phone. But when it powered back on, the message was there, and a second one. She tapped it, only static. But as it played, her TV screen flickered even though it was off. A faint image appeared for a split second. A face, not hers. She screamed and threw the remote. The screen went black again. She ran to the breaker, shut off the power, and sat in the dark, breathing, crying. Her phone, still in her hand, vibrated one more time. But this time, no message, just a screen full of fire, a red glow, and the words 808 connecting. She dropped it. It clattered across the floor. Ji-eun didn't sleep that night, not because she was afraid of what she would hear, but because she finally understood something. It wasn't just that the girl had died in 808. It wasn't just that the building had tried to erase her. It was that someone or something had sealed that door without ever listening to the final call. And now the voice was choosing someone new, not to call, but to answer. The fourth night, Ji-eun didn't wait for the voicemail. She prepared for it. She turned off all the lights, sat on the floor of her apartment in silence, her phone face up before her like a ceremonial object. In the corner of the room, the salt pile she'd left the night before had shifted, as if something had disturbed it. The grains were scattered now, forming strange lines, circles. She hadn't touched them. The air was heavy, still, a silence that felt unnatural, like the moment before an earthquake, when everything in the world holds its breath. 7:58 p.m. Ji-eun pressed record on her old voice recorder, the kind she used for class lectures years ago. She placed it next to her phone, just in case the voicemail couldn't be saved again. 7:59. She stared at the screen. 8 p.m. 8 minutes remained. She could feel it now, not just dread, but pressure. Something unseen pushing against her eardrums, as though the air itself was shifting. Not colder, just wrong. 8:07. Her hands began to tremble. Then, 8:08 p.m. Buzz. Her phone vibrated once. Unknown number. One voicemail. 00. 33 seconds. Ji-eun's finger hovered above the screen. She hesitated, then tapped play. This time there was no static at the beginning, just immediate sobbing, raw, guttural, painful. The girl was screaming, but not loudly. It was a broken, breathless sound, like her lungs were already filled with smoke. "Please, open the door. I'm still here. They think I left, but I didn't." Then a long cough, a gasp, a thud. Silence. And then, "You didn't save me." The voice was not angry. It was mournful. Blaming, yes, but softly, like a child crying through a locked door. The message ended. Ji-eun replayed it again and again. She tried to transcribe the words, write them down in her notebook, but each time she looked at the words on paper, her vision blurred, as if the ink couldn't hold the weight of what she'd heard. She tried playing it backward. She'd read somewhere that haunted recordings, if reversed, sometimes revealed hidden words. The playback felt slower, warped, and then she heard it, a whisper, clearer than before. You were chosen. Ji-eun dropped the recorder. It clattered to the floor and kept playing, now just static, looping endlessly, but beneath it, a low hum rose like chanting. Not in Korean, not in any language she recognized. She pulled the batteries from the recorder. Silence. But only for a moment. From her phone, another buzz. A second message. 8:08 p.m. 33 seconds. Timestamp identical to the first. She hadn't received two before. Hands shaking, she pressed play. The voice had changed. It was the same girl, but this time she wasn't crying. She was singing, softly, like a lullaby, a melody without words. But under the song was the sound of fire. It roared louder than before, cracking, devouring, and then 3 knocks, dull, slow, from within the recording. Knock, knock, knock. Ji-eun paused the recording, stared at her front door. Knock, knock, knock. Not from the phone, from the hallway. She froze, didn't breathe. The hallway remained silent after that, but something had changed. Ji-eun's rituals intensified. The next day, she placed bowls of clean water in each corner of her apartment, another tradition meant to ward off wandering spirits. She drew protection sigils on the windowsill, something she barely remembered from a friend's childhood stories. She no longer used the elevator. She didn't want to see if the 8 button would light up again. She stopped sleeping at night and started dreaming during the day. Dark, feverish dreams filled with alarms, red lights, and the distorted ring of a phone call that never ends. In one dream, she stood outside Unit 808, her own hand reaching toward the knob. She didn't want to enter, but the door pulled her in anyway, not by force, but by familiarity, as if she belonged there. When she woke, she found her phone placed neatly on her chest. It was powered on, and the call log showed one outgoing call. Number, unknown. Time, 8:08 a.m. Duration, 33 seconds. She hadn't made the call, but she knew what it meant. She wasn't just receiving anymore. She was answering. That evening, she lit a white candle and placed it beside her salt pile. The flame flickered wildly, though no window was open. She opened her notebook and began recording the voicemails manually. 4 nights, 4 voicemails, same length, same timestamp, same voice. But slowly, the words were changing, getting closer, more personal. On the 5th night, the message ended with, "Don't leave me here. You know what it feels like." And that was the first time Ji-eun cried, because she did know. The isolation, the silence, the unanswered cries. Her own worst nights, years ago, she had called out for someone too. not from fire, but from darkness, and no one had answered her either. Maybe that's why the voice had chosen her, because it recognized something in her: guilt, loneliness, an emptiness shaped like a door that would never open. That night, Ji-yoon did not hide from the message. She invited it. She placed the phone in front of the mirror, and when the voicemail began to play, she stared at her reflection. Halfway through, the image in the mirror blinked, but she hadn't. The girl in the mirror turned her head, ever so slightly, and Ji-yoon saw, for just a second, a burn mark creeping up the side of her own cheek. When the message ended, the mark was gone, but the memory stayed. So did the smell of smoke that lingered on her pillow. She couldn't explain it to anyone. She stopped replying to messages, deleted her social media, avoided calls from her mother. How do you tell someone that a dead girl is using voicemails to reach you? How do you explain that you're starting to listen? Worse, that you're starting to understand her. The sixth night, Ji-yoon spoke back. She left a voice note. She didn't know to whom. She just opened her recorder and whispered, "I hear you. I don't know how to help, but I hear you." She placed the phone beside her bed. She waited. The voicemail came, as always, but this time the message did not begin with crying. It began with a sigh of relief and the words, "Thank you."
The library was quiet, too quiet for a city this alive. Ji-yoon sat hunched over the old microfilm reader, eyes dry from hours of scanning headlines. She hadn't stepped outside much since the voicemail started, but now she needed answers. She couldn't sit in that apartment one more night with only salt and candles between her and the unknown. She searched for anything on the property. No one at the property office would speak about it. The building manager pretended the 8th floor didn't exist. And online? Just vague rumors, no official coverage. But here, buried in a forgotten stack of local paper archives from 3 years ago, she found it. A dormitory fire in the winter of 2022. 5 dead. One name repeated more than once: Seo Min-ah, age 20. Ji-yoon whispered it to herself like a spell. The name felt heavy in her mouth. Min-ah. There were no photos, only mentions in the report. A memorial vigil, comments from grieving students. One line stood out. Min-ah was the last one confirmed alive. She was still calling for help when firefighters arrived, but the signal dropped. Her final voicemail was time-stamped at 8:08 p.m. Ji-yoon's breath stopped. That time again, always 8:08. She flipped the page, another article. A fire captain quoted anonymously said, "There was a lot of confusion. We were told everyone had evacuated, but someone called from Unit 808 over and over. We thought it was a system error. When we got inside, it was too late." Ji-yoon felt the weight of it, the disbelief, the guilt, the silence that lived after a mistake too shameful to confess. She dug deeper. Online, she found a student blog, long abandoned, belonging to someone who had lived in the old dormitory. In one post, the girl wrote, "Min-ah was sweet, but always on her phone. We joked she lived through her screen. The night of the fire, she kept calling. They thought it was a prank. Her number just rang and rang. When it went to voicemail, it was already over." There was a screenshot attached, a call log. Ji-yoon stared at the number, the last 4 digits, 0808. A coincidence, maybe, or a loop. a pattern imprinted on the digital ether, like fingerprints in melted glass. She walked home that evening as the sun fell behind the towers, casting long shadows between the buildings. The streets were full of life, but Ji-yoon felt cut off from it, as though she were walking behind a pane of glass no one else could see through. She reached her apartment just before 8. Her phone buzzed the moment she stepped through the door. 8:08 p.m. Unknown number, 1 voicemail. 00:33 seconds. She didn't wait. She hit play. But this time, it didn't begin with sobbing. It began with the sound she hadn't heard before, the tone of a phone keypad, buttons being pressed. Then a voicemail greeting, her own, followed by silence. And then, Ji-yoon, you found me. Min-ah. She said her name. No more static, no more pleading, just that. Her voice, familiar now, real. You know what happened. They didn't answer, but you did. The message ended. Ji-yoon sat on the floor, numb. She whispered aloud, as if to the walls, "Why me?" But there was no response. Only the flickering of the candle she'd lit hours earlier. The flame danced wildly, throwing long shadows across the ceiling. She couldn't explain what she felt. Not fear exactly, something colder. Recognition. That night she didn't dream. She remembered. A night years ago in a studio apartment not unlike this one. She had sat on the bathroom floor with her phone in hand, crying into the speaker, calling someone who never picked up, saying words she couldn't remember now. But she remembered the silence afterwards, the kind of silence that lives in your bones. Min-ah had felt it too. The next day, Ji-yoon searched for the name again, Seo Min-ah. She found a university profile, a photo, blurry, small but enough. A girl with soft eyes and a timid smile, short hair, glasses. She stared at it for a long time. Then she checked her own call log. Nothing. But in the voicemail app, there was something new. A contact photo had been added. The image was low-res, almost smudged, but unmistakably, it was the same girl, Seo Min-ah. The name now appeared under the latest voicemail. Not just unknown. Now it had chosen to be seen. She clicked it. The phone attempted to call back. She panicked and canceled the call, but not before it rang once. And in the second it rang, she heard something from her speaker. A voice, distant, hollow, say, "Why did you hang up?" The call ended itself. Her hands were ice. She paced her apartment, trying to make sense of it. This was no longer about hauntings. It was about connection. Min-ah wasn't trying to terrorize her. She was trying to reach through time, through silence, through fire. And Ji-yoon was beginning to listen. She opened her voice recorder again. She whispered, "I'm here. I believe you." She hit send. Nowhere to send it, but she did it anyway. That night the voicemail came, as usual, 8:08 p.m. But this time, the voice wasn't alone. There were background sounds, sirens, shouting, doors slamming. Min-ah spoke clearly, urgently. "I'm not the only one here. They're stuck, all of us." Her voice cracked. "Please, they never listened. I don't want to be forgotten again." The message ended, and Ji-yoon realized something. This wasn't about a haunted room. This wasn't just Min-ah's story. There were others, trapped in that final moment, left behind by bureaucracy, by disbelief, by time, their voices fading into digital ether. She couldn't save them from death, but maybe she could help them be heard.
The loop began on a Thursday. June hadn't noticed it at first, how things started repeating. A moment here, a sound there, a familiar fragment of speech. It started with her kettle. At 8:08 a.m., it turned itself on. She hadn't touched it. Later, she checked the stove clock. It blinked, 8:08. When she unlocked her phone to check the weather, the forecast banner froze for a moment before displaying the temperature, 8.8 degrees Celsius. Small things, harmless things. Until her phone rang. Not vibrated, rang. An actual ringtone, loud, piercing. She hadn't heard it ring in weeks. Caller ID, June. She froze. The screen showed her own number, calling herself. She didn't answer. She let it ring until it stopped. 33 seconds. When she checked her voicemail, there was no new message, just the previous one from Mina. But it had changed. She tapped play. This time, it began with her own voice, faint, choppy. "I'm here. I believe you." Her recording, but warped, echoed, as if it had traveled a long way to return to her. Then Mina's voice layered over it, soft, close. "You hear me now, but soon you'll be me." The message ended. June dropped the phone. She backed into the kitchen, heart thudding. The kettle whistled, shrill, angry, even though it had no water. She turned it off, unplugged it, stared at her reflection in the microwave door. For a moment, it wasn't her face staring back, just smoke, thick, black smoke behind her eyes. That evening, she turned on every light in the apartment. She called her mother, left a message pretending everything was fine. She paced. She opened her laptop and played white noise just to feel less alone. But no matter what she did, she kept checking the clock. 8:06, 8:07. She sat down, waited. 8:08 p.m. Buzz. Unknown number. One voicemail. 33 seconds. She didn't listen. Not this time. She let it sit. But her phone screen flickered, and without being touched, the message began to play. This time, the background noise was different. It wasn't fire. It was the sound of a hallway, elevator chimes, footsteps, a door creaking open. Then her voice again, clearer now. "I'm home." June recoiled. She had said those words when she entered the apartment 33 minutes ago. Exactly. The voicemail ended. She checked the file details. Recorded, 8:08 p.m., length, 33 seconds. Location tag, Suryong Tower, Unit 807. She hadn't granted location access. Her phone shouldn't have known. The next morning, she found a new entry in her recent calls. 8:08 a.m., outgoing call, duration 033. She tapped it. No info, just a gray screen. No contact, no history. But when she checked her boyfriend's messages, the last one was from her, a voicemail. Same time, same length. He had texted back, "Was that you crying? Is everything okay?" June had no memory of sending it. She played the message. Her voice again, distorted, crying. "It's hot, too hot. Don't leave me." It wasn't her, but it was her voice. She deleted the message, blocked the number, told herself it was a glitch. But deep down, she knew the truth. The loop had begun. Mina's voice was merging with hers, or worse, echoing through her.
That evening, her neighbor from 806 knocked, concerned. "Hey, I heard something strange. Are you okay? It sounded like someone screaming in your unit." June lied, said it was the TV. The neighbor nodded but didn't look convinced. She added quietly, "Someone used to live in your place, right? Before the renovation?" June paused. "Why?" The woman hesitated. "Just weird noises lately. Phones ringing, even when they're off." Then she left. June closed the door and leaned against it. The walls were too thin. The veil was thinner. That night, she recorded herself. She placed her phone on the table, hit record, went to bed. When she woke, the phone was dead. Battery full when she started, now drained completely. She plugged it in, waited. When it finally powered on, the recording was still there. She pressed play. It was silent at first, just ambient room noise. Then the sound of her door unlocking. She sat up in bed, listening with growing dread. Soft footsteps, the gentle creak of floorboards. Then her voice, or not quite hers, a whisper. "Help me." Another voice layered under it, a chorus of whispers. "You are me. You are me. You are me." She stopped the recording, deleted it. She burned more salt, lit 3 candles, recited a protection chant she found online, but nothing worked. Because this wasn't possession, it wasn't haunting, it was substitution. Mina wasn't just calling, she was becoming. And June, she was becoming the call. She tried staying in a hotel, but the message still came. 8:08 p.m., buzz, unknown number, 1 voicemail, 33 seconds. She left her phone in the car. Still, the hotel phone rang. Room line. No caller ID. 8:08 p.m. She picked up and heard herself breathing. Just breathing. Then fire. Then a scream. Then, "Unit 808." She hung up, packed her bag, returned to Suryan Tower. Because no matter where she went, the loop followed. And now her own words were being used against her. Replayed, remixed, rebound. She no longer knew what was real or who was speaking. That night, her voicemail came early, 7:33 p.m. The timestamp no longer obeyed the hour. She didn't even touch the phone. It just played. And this time, Mina said, "We're almost together now." The subway trembled beneath her feet, but Jian barely felt it. She sat hunched in the corner of the train, coat drawn tight around her. Her phone sat powered off in her bag, wrapped in layers of cloth like a cursed object. No headphones, no screen, no signal. And yet, she still heard it. Somewhere, just beyond the edge of sound, a voicemail tone playing on loop. It had been 2 nights since she last slept, since she last ate. She needed help, not from police, not from tech support, from someone who understood that ghosts didn't always knock, sometimes they called. It took hours of research and whispers in fringe forums before she found him. A blind shaman, old, traditional, kept out of public listings, worked alone. His small Hanak home stood at the far end of an alley so narrow she had to walk sideways to pass through. Wind chimes hung from wooden beams, but none moved. The air was heavy. She knocked once. The door opened before her fist fell a second time. He was already waiting, wrinkled, motionless,
eyes clouded like milk. He didn't ask her name. He only said, "You've heard the fire." She nodded. He turned and walked back inside. Jian followed him. The interior smelled of herbs and something faintly metallic. Bells hung in the corners of the ceiling, and at the center of the room was a small bowl filled with ash. Candles lined the walls. None were lit. The shaman gestured for her to sit. He did not touch her. He did not ask questions. He simply placed his palm over the bowl of ash and whispered. And the ash moved, swirled inwards, spun counterclockwise, fast, faster, then stopped. His hand hovered above it. "She chose you," he said, voice low. "She died during ritual time, between breath and silence, between alarms and answers. Her pain was never carried away." Jian blinked. "Ritual time?" He nodded once. 808. In Korean spiritual mathematics, the double 8 is the cycle that traps, infinity mirrored. It becomes a cage. The moment you heard her, you stepped inside it. Jian's throat tightened. "How do I get out?" The shaman's clouded eyes moved toward her, though she doubted he could see her face. "You don't, not unless she lets go. And she won't, not yet." "I didn't ask for this." "But you were empty," he interrupted. "She felt that. The lost always find the hollow." Jian swallowed hard. "I want to help her, but she's in me, or I'm in her. I can't tell anymore." The shaman leaned closer. "If she merges with you fully, your soul will fold inward. Your name will vanish. You'll be another voice on the line, a new ghost in the circuit." Jian flinched. "There has to be something I can do, a ritual, a prayer, something." He was silent for a long time. Then he reached behind him and pulled out a small, paper-bound book, yellowed, edges burned. He placed it in her lap with both hands. "You must answer her." Jian blinked. "I've been answering. I've been listening to the messages every night." "No, not listen. Answer, directly. Pick up the call." Her stomach dropped. "You want me to answer the call?" The shaman nodded. "At the right time, when the loop reaches its weakest point, when she is crying, not calling, then say her name, speak the truth, tell her she died, tell her no one came, and then let her go." "That's it?" "No." He leaned back. "If she speaks before she asks, she will think you are one of them, the ones who ignored her. She will possess the last voice she hears, and if she speaks yours into the fire, it becomes hers." Jian's breath trembled. "Then when?" He looked toward the unlit candles. "When she stops calling, when she begins remembering." Jian clutched the book in her lap. "What happens if I fail?" The shaman's voice lowered to a whisper. "Then you become her, and she walks out wearing your skin." That night, Jian returned home. She powered on her phone. 8 new voicemails, all unread, all 0033 seconds. She didn't play them, not yet. Instead, she lit a single candle and placed the paper-bound ritual book beside it. Her hands shook as she flipped through the pages. It wasn't in Korean, not modern Korean, but she understood it.
Somehow, the symbols meant what they meant. A diagram of a circle drawn in salt, a symbol to be drawn on the floor, two interlocked eights, one open, one closed, and a phrase to be spoken once the phone rings. I hear you, Minna. This is your voice now. Only once. Only if she asks. Only if Jian still remembers her own name when the line opens. The candle flickered. The apartment creaked. Somewhere far away, a siren began to rise, then stopped short, as if cut off mid-breath. Jian stood in the center of her living room. She poured salt in a circle, drew the symbol inside, placed her phone at its heart, and then waited. 7:56 p.m. She inhaled, felt the apartment close around her like a box. 7:58. She kneeled at the edge of the circle, eyes closed. 7:59. A deep hush settled over the room, the kind of silence that sounds like breathing. Then, 8:08 p.m. Her phone rang. Not buzzed, rang. A low, shivering tone, the kind used in old rotary phones. She didn't touch it. She let it ring. The screen glowed. Incoming call. Say Min Ah. She waited for her to speak. The line stopped. And then, the line opened. She didn't top anything. No speaker, no accept. Just open. And on the other side, Min Ah whispered, "Am I still burning?" Jian's lips trembled. She remembered the words. She remembered the warning. She remembered her own name. And she spoke. "No, the fire is gone, Minna. You don't have to call anymore." Silence. Then sobbing. "Are you still there?" "I'm here." Jian placed one palm on the floor. The salt felt warm beneath her skin. Minna's voice softened. "I was so scared. It was dark, and no one answered." "I know. I'm sorry." The line cracked. Jian could smell smoke again. Not around her. Inside her. She could feel it moving through her lungs. Minna sobbed. "I thought I was the only one." "You're not," Jian said. "You were heard." The line buzzed once. The screen blinked. And then it ended. The phone went dark. No more voicemails. No more static. Just silence. Jian sat there for a long time. The candle burned low. The salt circle held. And in that fragile, final quiet, for the first time in weeks, she didn't hear anything at all. No ringing. No fire. No voice. Not even her own.
The hallway felt different. Ji-yoon noticed it as soon as she stepped outside her apartment. The lights were dimmer than usual, not flickering, just dull, as if something was soaking up the electricity before it could reach full brightness. She walked slowly, barefoot on the cold floor, the silence folding over her like a second skin. Everything was still, the kind of stillness that made you afraid to breathe. And then she saw it. The door. Unit 808. Open. just slightly. Not wide, not swinging. Just enough to say, "I've been waiting." She stood before it, heart pounding in her ears. The metal surface of the door looked aged now, warped, like it had been burned and scrubbed clean. The doorknob was bent, the paint near the bottom blistered. She hadn't touched it. No one had. And yet, it was open. For her. She reached forward, fingers trembling, and pushed the door gently with her palm. It creaked inward. The air inside smelled of dust, old paper, and beneath that, something sour and faintly burnt. She stepped over the threshold. Unit 808 was dark. The windows were blacked out, covered in layers of soot-stained plastic. The walls bore faint outlines where posters or photos had once hung, rectangular ghosts in yellowed wallpaper. The floor was bare cement, cracked in places, and in one corner, a scorched outline of something circular. She reached for the light switch. It didn't work. So she turned on her phone's flashlight. That's when she saw the charger. A phone charger, still plugged into the wall. Alone, curling like a snake. She knelt beside it, touched the wire. Cold, unused, but not new. It hadn't been moved in years. Ji-yoon scanned the room. A single metal desk sat against the wall, rusted at the joints. On it, a cracked mirror. She stepped closer. The mirror was warped, like heat had twisted its frame. And in it, something moved. Her reflection stared back, but slightly delayed. She tilted her head. The girl in the mirror did the same, a breath too late. And then she smiled. Ji-yoon hadn't smiled. She stepped back, heart thudding, and the smile vanished. Behind her, the door creaked shut on its own. She spun around, flashlight beams slicing the dark. No wind, no draft, just the silence pressing in tighter now, like walls that breathed. She turned back to the mirror and saw someone else, not just herself, a girl, short black hair, glasses, half her face blistered red, the other weeping. So Min-ah, staring at her, mouth open in a silent scream. She stumbled away, hitting the desk. Something clattered to the floor, an old mobile phone. She crouched and picked it up. It was melted along one side, the screen dead. But the case, faded pink, dotted with cracked plastic hearts, still held a name tag. Min-ah. Her throat tightened. She held the phone like a relic, careful, reverent. It was heavier than it should have been, and still warm. She turned to leave, but the door was gone. Not closed, gone. In its place, a blank stretch of wall. She blinked, tried to breathe. No handle, no hinges, just wall. She stepped back, panic rising. The lights flickered. Then her phone buzzed. She hadn't turned it on. She hadn't even touched it. The screen lit up. Incoming call. No number. 0000. Then it began to count. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. She didn't touch the screen, but the speaker came on, and Min-ah's voice whispered through it. "You're inside now." The light dimmed. Ji-yoon clutched the phone, her breath ragged. She turned in circles. The apartment had changed. The walls were tighter, the ceiling lower, the air thick with smoke.
She dropped to the floor, coughing, and as she gasped, she heard it. Knocks from beneath the floor. Knock, 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 and a whisper rising with each beat. Answer me, answer me, answer me. She crawled toward where the door should have been, felt along the wall, fingers scraping rough plaster, and then a vibration through her hand. A new voicemail. She looked down. The phone screen read, voicemail, 0033, timestamp, now. She pressed play. Silence. Then her own voice. Help, I'm in 808. I don't know how to get out. She never said that. She never said it, but she was saying it now. Then Min Ah's voice. We remember the ones who listen. The voicemail ended, and the door reappeared. Not all at once. First, the knob, then the hinges, then the shape of it, burned, blackened. She lunged forward, grabbed the handle, twisted. It opened. The hallway was still there, bright, empty. She stumbled out, collapsed on the floor outside her apartment. She crawled to her door, shoved it open, and slammed it behind her, then slid down to the floor, shaking. She checked the phone. The message was gone. No history, no proof, but the scent remained. Smoke, salt, and something else. Ash in her lungs. That night, she left Unit 808 untouched. But from the other side of the wall, just past midnight, she heard it. Breathing. Slow. Deliberate. Not angry. Just waiting.
The fire started small. Not real flames, not yet. Just a mark. Blackened lines at the edge of her bedroom window, like scorch marks from a candle left burning too long. Gia noticed them the morning after she entered Unit 808. She wiped at them with her sleeve, expecting dust, but the marks didn't smear. They were embedded, as if the wall itself had burned and forgotten how. She said nothing. She told herself it was mold, or rust, or her eyes playing tricks. But that night, at 8:08, her alarm fire shrieked. She bolted upright. No smoke, no heat, just the alarm wailing in red flashes. She reached up, pulled the battery. The sound died. Silence dropped like a shroud. But her room wasn't empty. Not anymore. She stood still, breath held, listened, and heard it. From inside the walls, a faint, rhythmic scratching, like fingers dragging across sheetrock. Then, whispering, right behind the paint, a girl's voice. Are you still there? Jian didn't answer. She walked to the far wall, the one closest to Unit 808, pressed her ear against it. The whisper was clearer now. It wasn't Mina. It was someone else. Another voice. Soft, muffled, terrified. Is it over yet? Then sobbing. Then silence. She backed away, lit a candle, sprinkled more salt, but the shadows in the corners refused to retreat, and the temperature of her room began to rise, slow, steady, suffocating. She opened the window, but the air that came in wasn't cold. It was heavy, charred. It smelled like burned plastic and wet earth. That night, Jian found an old blueprint of Suryong Tower online, back when it was still a student dormitory. She zoomed in on her floor. There it was, Unit 808, larger than the others. It had once connected to a service tunnel, a narrow crawl space that snaked between units, used for maintenance, but no longer listed. She checked her hallway. There was no sign of it. But in the back of her closet, behind a false panel, she found a small square of metal bolted to the floor. A hatch. She stared at it for a long time, then opened it. The crawl space was dark, narrow. She slipped inside, flashlight in hand. The walls were tight, insulated with old foam, wiring running along the edges like veins. She crawled for several meters, then paused. She was directly between 807 and 808 now. Her light flickered, and in its brief pulse, she saw it. Soot-stained handprints on the foam. Small, thin, trailing backward as if someone had been dragged. She pressed forward, breath shallow. At the end of the crawl space, the passage widened into a small, forgotten room, a junction. And on the far wall, burned into the insulation, were the words, "I waited." She shined her light across the room. Something glinted. A melted ID badge. Jian picked it up. Park So-yeon. Another name. Not Mina. Another girl. Another voice. Another one who had never made it out. She crawled back, faster now. Dust clung to her skin, her clothes. Her lungs burned. She coughed into her sleeve, and when she pulled it back, there was soot on her lips. The fire wasn't metaphor anymore. It was spreading into her. That night, she took a long shower, scrubbed her arms raw, burned the clothes she wore in the crawl space. She sat on the floor of the bathroom afterward, knees drawn to her chest. The lights flickered once, then again. 808. She hadn't noticed the time. The phone buzzed. Unknown number. One voicemail. 00:33 seconds. She didn't need to press play. Her speaker came on by itself, and Mina's voice whispered, "Not just me. We're all still here." Jian opened her eyes, saw her mirror cloud over with steam, and in the fog, shapes formed. Faces. 5, maybe 6, watching. Mouths open, but no sound. She closed her eyes again, covered her ears, but the message kept playing. "You saw us, now we see you." The recording ended, but the presence did not. That night, as she lay in bed, she felt heat rising beneath the mattress. She pulled up the covers. The sheets were warm, too warm. She turned on the light and found ashes on her pillow. Just a few, like remnants from a burned note. She brushed them away, heart thudding, then saw the words faintly scrawled in soot on the wall above her head. "You didn't answer in time." The alarm fires didn't go off again, but Jian knew why. Because now the fire wasn't outside. It lived in the walls, in the wiring, in the whispers. And it wasn't just Mina anymore. It was all of them, calling, waiting, burning.
and she was running out of time.
The fire never truly stopped. It flickered behind her eyes, flashed in every reflection, settled into her lungs like a second breath. Ji-yoon no longer trusted silence. It hummed too loud. It pulsed. Her phone was never truly off now. Even when powered down, the screen sometimes blinked at 8:08. Once, in the dead of night, it lit up and displayed a name, Mina, active. That morning, Ji-yoon made a decision. She needed truth, not whispers, not mirrors, not cryptic voicemails burned into time. Truth. She found the name of one of the fire captains who'd worked the 2022 blaze, buried in an old blog about unjust deaths and forgotten tragedies. He was retired now, living alone on the city's edge, rumored to speak only when drunk. She didn't care. She took a taxi out of Seoul, past the concrete high-rises, and into a quieter district where the mountains breathed closer. She found him in a corner booth of a dusty pojangmacha. He wore an old firefighter's jacket, yellowed with age. He didn't flinch when she sat across from him. He simply asked, "Are you from the building?" Ji-yoon nodded once. "I live in 807. He took a long sip of soju and set the glass down gently. "Then you've heard her." The words weren't a question. She waited. He didn't look at her. He looked at the table. It wasn't supposed to happen. The alarms failed. No one double-checked the upper rooms. They said all students had evacuated, but I kept hearing ringing. His fingers tapped the table in a slow, even rhythm. Someone's phone kept calling the station, repeatedly, but the system flagged it as a duplicate, a loop, automated. Ji-yoon leaned in. "Mina?" He nodded. She was in 808. The last call we traced was at 8:08 p.m. I didn't want to believe someone was still inside. His voice dropped. But someone answered. Ji-yoon's chest tightened. "What?" He nodded again. "One of our radios connected for 33 seconds, just long enough to hear breathing, a scream, and then nothing." Her heart was pounding now. Who answered? No one knows. That line wasn't logged. It wasn't even supposed to be active. We checked. There was no record of it ever existing. She whispered, "But someone answered." He looked at her now, tired eyes, hollow. "I think she never stopped calling. I think she's still waiting for someone to say, 'You're not alone.'" Ji-yoon exhaled slowly. "I think she chose me." He blinked, once, then leaned in, voice low. "Then you have to finish the call. Not just listen, finish it." She asked the question that had haunted her for days. "How?" He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small, scorched piece of paper. It looked part of a log sheet, torn and blackened, numbers barely visible. He pointed. "This is the timestamp. 8:08, 33 seconds. Line ID ends in 8:08. Ji-yoon stared at it. That was her number. Or close. The same ending. She hadn't seen it before, but now she remembered. Her current number had been randomly assigned when she changed providers earlier this year. Had she been given that number? Mina's number? Or had her own number been rewritten by something else? By the spirit who wanted to finish her last call? Ji-yoon returned to Suryung Tower in silence. The building loomed taller now, wider, heavier. The elevator lights flickered when she entered. She pressed 7, but for the first time, the button for 8 lit up on its own. She didn't touch it. She didn't need to. The elevator stopped on the 8th floor.
The doors opened, and for a moment, the hallway looked different. Longer, dimmer, paint peeling, burn marks tracing the baseboards, as if she had stepped back in time into the night of the fire. She stepped out. The air was thick, the lights buzzed, and Unit 808 was wide open. No smoke, no flames, just darkness. Inside, everything had changed. It wasn't a gutted room anymore. It was a dormitory again. A bed half made, a desk cluttered with textbooks and candy wrappers, a phone charging on the nightstand, screen cracked, glowing faintly. Ji-yoon walked slowly to the phone. It lit up as she approached. Incoming call. From unknown. Duration 000. She stared at it. The call began without her touching anything. On speaker, and a voice spoke. Not Mina, her own voice, from an old voicemail. Her voice years ago when she had called someone during her worst night. Please pick up, please. The audio crackled. Then Mina's voice overlaid it. You know what it's like to call and no one answers. Ji-yoon sank to the floor. She nodded. I do. The screen flashed once, then displayed a single word. Ready? Ji-yoon whispered, yes. A new call initiated on the dorm phone. It dialed out. She didn't know where it was going. She didn't know who would answer. But this time, she would stay on the line. 33 seconds passed. She closed her eyes and heard Mina whisper, You stayed. You didn't hang up. The walls around her pulsed with heat. Then, suddenly, everything went still. No breathing, no voices, no fire, just quiet, peaceful. She opened her eyes. The room was empty, dusty, broken, burned. Unit 808, as it was, as it had always been. But something had changed. Mina was gone. The line had finally disconnected.
She thought it was over. For a few nights, the world held still. The walls didn't breathe. The salt didn't shift. Her phone didn't buzz at 8:08. No more voicemails. No whispers in the mirror. Just quiet. And Ji-yoon told herself, I answered. I stayed. That was enough. But silence, she realized, can be a lie, too. Because on the fourth night, the phone rang again. No voicemail, just a single, long ring. It came at 8:08 p.m. sharp. The screen didn't show a number, didn't show a name, just two words. Answer me. She didn't. Not yet. Instead, she reopened the old ritual book the shaman had given her. Pages that had seemed faded now glowed faintly under candlelight. The ink shimmered. One new line had been added, as though it had always been there. The call must be answered in truth and in full. Speak not just to her, but to all who burn with her. Ji-yoon lit incense, drew the salt circle again, sat cross-legged inside it with her phone placed directly in front of her. Then she whispered the new words. I open the line. I speak to the forgotten. I stay until it ends. Her phone rang again. No option to decline, no option to answer. It just rang. She waited. Let it ring for 33 seconds.
Then the speaker activated itself. This time, there were no voices, only screams. Not loud, not violent, distant, hollow. Hundreds of them, woven together, a tapestry of agony buried in static. Then a single voice cut through it all. Minna. She whispered, "I'm not alone. I told them you stayed. Now they all want to be heard." Ji-yeon swallowed. "I'm listening." "You can't just listen. You have to become the line. You have to carry it forward." The lights flickered. The floor beneath Ji-yeon pulsed with heat. Her candle bent sideways, not from wind, but from breath. Something invisible now sat in the circle with her. Minna whispered again. "One of them didn't die in the fire. He locked the doors, turned off the alarms. They were never supposed to escape." Ji-yoon's chest tightened. "You mean someone did this?" "I was calling for help, but I was also calling for justice," she said. Then another voice joined the call. A man, raspy, terrified. "They're watching me. Every night, every time I close my eyes, I see them." Ji-yeon blinked. "Who are you?" "My name is Choi Hwan. I was the building inspector. I signed off on the faulty alarms. I knew the system failed. I knew. I lied. I lied to the families. I buried the records. I thought it would go away." Then a soft whisper beneath his voice. 8 minutes. 8 doors. 8 forgotten. We remember. Ji-yoon's phone screen turned red, then black, then displayed a phrase in pale white letters. "You are the line." The salt around her cracked. The candle snuffed itself out. In the dark, dozens of voices began to rise. Young, old, male, female. Whispers overlapping, some crying, some chanting. Minna's voice returned. "They don't need justice. They don't want revenge." Ji-yeon breathed. "Then what?" Minna's reply was almost a lullaby. "They want to be carried." Ji-yeon closed her eyes, let the words wash over her. "I will carry you." The phone grew hot in her palm, too hot. She dropped it. The floor beneath her glowed faintly, the salt lines burning, reshaping, moving. The symbol at her feet morphed into an eye, a spiral, then into a single, glowing 8. Minna whispered again. "This is the loop. This is the ritual. You must answer them all." One by one, new voicemails appeared on her phone, each with a name, each exactly 33 seconds. She pressed play, one after another. A girl named Soyeon, a boy named Daehan, a teacher named Miss Baek, a janitor who stayed behind. Each voice whispered their last memory. Each one ended the same way. "I called, no one came." And each time, Ji-yeon whispered back, "I hear you now." The line glowed, the circle pulsed, and one by one, the voices began to fade. Not disappear, but rest, settle. The room grew lighter, cooler. But one message remained, the final call. No name attached, just the number 0808. She pressed play and heard her own voice, not distorted, not warped, just her. From 2 years ago, crying into her phone, begging someone to stay on the line. It was her lowest moment, one no one had ever heard. And yet, it was here. She listened to all 33 seconds. Then she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks, "I'm still here." The circle broke. The phone powered down. The apartment went quiet. And for the first time in weeks, there were no messages waiting, no calls, no screams, only silence. And this time, it was real.
She thought it was done. Ji-yoon cleaned her walls, wiped the soot away. She deleted every voicemail, burned every salt line, shut off her phone for 3 days straight. For the first time in what felt like forever, she made tea and drank it while it was still hot. She even left the building and walked by the river, let the cold air sting her skin. Mina was gone. They all were. She had listened. She had carried them. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. The signs returned, softly at first. A flicker in the mirror, a whisper too faint to name. Then, one morning, she woke to find her name gone from her voicemail greeting. Instead of, "You've reached Ji-yoon," it now said nothing, just silence. She re-recorded it, but the next day it disappeared again. Then the phone started calling out, without permission. The first was to her mother, the second to her old therapist whom she hadn't spoken to in years. They both called back, asking if she was okay. "You left a message," her mother said. "You were crying. You sounded like a child. Or maybe..." She paused. "Maybe not even you." Ji-yoon checked the outgoing messages. Nothing there. But the phone kept calling, always at 8:08, always for 33 seconds. And then one night, it called her. She didn't recognize the number. She almost didn't answer, but something compelled her to lift the phone. The voice on the line wasn't Mina. It was her own, distorted, slurred, like it had been copied too many times. "I'm still here," it said. "You didn't finish. You spoke the wrong name." Ji-yoon froze. "What? You thought I was Mina, but I was only her echo. I needed a name, so I borrowed hers." Ji-yoon's skin turned cold. "You said..." "I said what you needed to hear, but I was never her." The voice darkened. "I waited in the static, in the calls, in the empty spaces between words. You opened the line, and I slipped through." Ji-yoon backed away from the phone. No, I helped her. I finished it." "You helped them, but not me. You carried their pain, but you gave me your name." She dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, but didn't disconnect. On speaker, the voice continued. "You thought the ritual closed the loop, but you left a door open. You let her wear her voice, and now I wear yours." The apartment dimmed. The lights buzzed in a flash of heat. The air turned thick, sulfurous. Ji-yoon stumbled back, grabbing the ritual book. She flipped to the last page. It was blank. Every page was blank. The ink had bled away, erased. Her protections were gone. She whispered the names again, every name she had written, every voice she had answered, but none of them replied. Only silence. Then laughter, soft, childlike, mocking. "You never asked who I was. You were so eager to help. You never noticed I didn't belong." She fell to her knees. "What do you want?" The voice quieted. "To become." The apartment shook. The lights burst in a flash of heat. Her screen glowed bright red. Transferring identity. 33%, 66%, 88%. She screamed and threw it against the wall. It cracked, but the screen kept glowing. The transfer continued, and her reflection in the window began to change. Not at once, not violently, just subtly. Her eyes shifted shade. Her cheekbones sharpened. Her breath fogged the glass differently now. She backed away. "I know who I am." But the voice answered, "Do you?" She ran, out of the apartment, down the hall, pounded on her neighbor's door. No one answered. She tried the elevator. It didn't come. Only the screen blinked, going up, 8th floor. She turned and ran for the stairs. Her footsteps echoed too loudly, like someone else was running behind her. When she reached the lobby, it was empty, but her phone was already there, lying on the welcome desk, screen blinking. Name updated, Ji-yoon, host. She smashed it with a fire extinguisher, again and again, until it was shattered. But even then it kept ringing, a dull, ghostly vibration from broken glass. That night she returned to her unit, sat in the salt circle surrounded by darkness. She whispered the truth. "I don't know who you are." The room replied, "Then no one does." And in the mirror, Ji-yoon watched herself blink, a half second too late. She didn't remember leaving the message, but there it was. Ji-yoon stood frozen in the middle of her apartment, staring at the screen of her phone, cracked, half dead, but still functioning in ways it shouldn't. Voicemail sent, 8:08 p.m. Recipient, Mom. Duration, 0033 seconds. Transcript unavailable. Her mother had replied within minutes. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? You said something about fire, about being trapped. I couldn't understand. Please call me." Ji-yoon didn't. She couldn't, because she never remembered saying any of it. She'd been home. She'd been silent, hadn't touched the phone, and yet her voice had found a way out. This was no longer a haunting. This was a transmission. She played the voicemail. She had to. Her own voice bled through the speaker, weak, trembling, but undeniably hers. "I can't breathe. The walls are hot. I thought I got out, but I didn't. I'm still here. Please, answer." 33 seconds, then silence. But what chilled her more than the words was the tone. It wasn't panic. It wasn't fear. It was familiarity. Like someone who accepted being forgotten. Like someone who no longer expected to be saved. She stared at her reflection in the window. It mimicked her movements, mostly. But every now and then, it lagged, just slightly. Enough to feel like someone else was pretending to be her and getting better at it. She stepped away from the glass, checked the floor for the salt line. Gone. The white grains had scattered as if blown apart by wind. But there were no open windows, no draft, only the lingering scent of burned plastic and something older, like singed paper sealed in an envelope no one dared open. She turned to her phone. It buzzed again. New voicemail from unknown 0033. She tapped it. No voice, just breathing. Then a faint knock from within the speaker. Then from her wall. 3 knocks, slow, hollow. Then her voice again, not from the phone, but from the wall itself. "I'm still in 807.
She dropped the phone, ran to the door, flung it open, but the hallway was wrong. Too long, stretched. The lighting dimmed into a flickering amber like old emergency bulbs. The door across the hall, 809, was gone. In its place, another version of her own, 807. Same door, same number, right across from her. The peephole was blacked out from the inside. She walked toward it, hand shaking, compelled by something she couldn't name. Before she reached it, the door creaked open, just enough to see inside. The unit was identical, furniture placed the same way, salt lines drawn, candle burned out, and her, sitting on the floor, back facing the door, head tilted, breathing slowly. Ji-yoon's throat tightened. The other version turned, slowly, as if sensing her presence. The face looked like hers, but older, tired, burned. She smiled barely. "Did you think you were the first?" the other Ji-yoon asked. Ji-yoon couldn't speak. 807 is not a room. It's a reflection, a holding cell. Every time someone tries to carry the calls, they end up here. She shook her head. "No, I finished it. I stayed on the line." The figure stood up, stepped closer. "You stayed, but you didn't close. You left the line open, and now it echoes." She stepped back. "What do you want?" Her twin stared at her. "To be forgotten, but this place won't leave us. We all left messages, and now we are the messages." The hallway lights dimmed further. Doors multiplied on both sides, each one labeled 807. She turned around. Her door was gone. Now it too read 807. No matter where she turned, the number followed. She picked up her phone. One voicemail remained. No timestamp, no sender, just a single word. Answer. She pressed play, and for the first time, silence. Not even static. Then a faint whisper. Her name. But not how she said it, how her mother said it, how her father used to say it, how she barely remembered it anymore. And then the line went dead. Her reflection blinked, and this time, she didn't. The listing went live at midnight. It was short, simple, deceptively clean. Modern one-bedroom unit available in Central Seoul high-rise. Quiet neighbors, recently vacated. Unit 807. There were no photos, just a glowing map pin and a phone number with 4 digits that repeated like a whisper. 0808. A young man named Jun-ho clicked the ad the next morning. He'd been apartment hunting for weeks, and this was the first unit within budget and walking distance to his new job. It felt lucky. He didn't believe in omens, didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in rent, and this one was low. Too low. He scheduled a viewing that afternoon. The agent barely said a word, just smiled, held out the keys, led him to the elevator, pressed 7. When they stepped into the hallway, Jun-ho noticed something odd. All the doors looked the same, except for one. Faded paint, a number plate more worn than the rest. 807. The agent opened it with a soft click. The apartment was tidy, empty. Fresh white paint, pale wood floor, no stains, no smell. But the air felt still, like it had just exhaled after holding its breath for too long. Jun-ho walked through it,
nodding politely. He opened cabinets, peeked inside the bathroom, stood in the living room and looked out the window. No view, just the side of the neighboring building. But it didn't matter. He needed a place. And this one felt oddly familiar, like a room he'd dreamed once but couldn't remember. He didn't notice the faint black marks at the edge of the bedroom wall, didn't notice the burned socket behind the nightstand, didn't question the fact that the number 8 was missing from the elevator panel. He just smiled and signed the lease. The agent gave him one final look before leaving, a strange look. Not quite pity, not quite satisfaction, just recognition. That night, Junho moved in, unpacked, ate ramen on the floor, set up his Wi-Fi. As he arranged his desk, he heard it, faint but unmistakable, a buzz from his phone. He picked it up. Unknown number, one voicemail. He stared at the screen, blinking. He didn't remember missing a call, didn't even remember the phone ringing, but the voicemail was there, waiting. He hit play. At first, static. Then, a voice, a woman, barely audible, breathing heavily. "Please, I'm still in 808. The line crackled. "I called. No one answered. Please, it's hot." Then, silence. Junho frowned, deleted it. Must have been spam. He didn't know anyone in Unit 808. Didn't realize there was no Unit 808. Didn't see the burned reflection in the microwave door as he passed. Didn't notice the number 807 flickering on the inside of his phone screen. Not the outside, the inside. He slept early, exhausted, alone. And at exactly 8:08 p.m., his phone lit up again. Unknown number, one voicemail. The building stood silent. Suryong Tower never made a sound. And somewhere beneath its walls, a loop began again.